pFITE is an environmental series showcasing poems and songs that celebrate the beauty of the natural world. These have been sent in by creatives at all levels, from professionals to newcomers, and perhaps even your neighbour next door. The most popular poet and musician will each win a £500 prize, and the same amount will go to an environmental charity of their choice.
Welcome to the pFITE Awards ceremony, and let's welcome your hosts for the evening, Florrie Crass, Maddy, Lido.
We're here to celebrate pFITE, otherwise known as poetry and folk music in the environment. And what a series it's been!
Amid the chaos of the world, we've tried to show you both the dark sides and the bright, and we hope that you finish this series feeling connected to and inspired by all of the creatives around you.
pFITE has really highlighted a community of people who want to use their creativity to talk about the environment, and we are so honoured to have been able to showcase this far and wide.
Everyone who has watched, entered and voted in this competition has bolstered this initiative. But there can only be one winner.
Two winners.
What?
Poetry and folk music.
Oh, of course. There can only be two winners. And the nominees for the poetry category are Phil Vernon with Assonance.
My mum's an archaeologist. She knows how people lived before by finding what they left behind. She says the atmosphere around us floats with clues she catches in a kind of electronic net.
The scenario in my poem Assonance is a history class, probably a high school class of students sometime in the future, perhaps the distant future, learning about and discussing how the people of our time didn't react in time to our environmental crisis, and that things spun out of control. The poem is somehow combining optimism in the sense that despite the environmental crisis we're facing now, things somehow didn't spin out entirely out of control, and that there are people in this history lesson with a history teacher learning about our time sometime in the future. But what's pessimistic about it is hinted in the final stanza of the poem. They appear to be facing a similar situation, and indicating that they haven't learned the lessons of history, and that another cycle of destruction or even self-destruction seems to be happening.
Suzanne Lambert with On the Future of Our Home.
We have enough water, enough land, enough hope. If we can believe, everything we need is here already. Everything we need is already here.
The reason I made this poem is because I feel like sometimes a poem can get to the heart of something just a lot quicker and clearer than maybe a conversation. It's an act of solidarity. It's to connect to other people and to say we're in this together, and there are things we can do, practical things and consumerist and lifestyle choices we can make every day that does en masse have an impact. And we can keep the pressure on governments and policymakers to make decisions that are going to have these bigger impacts, and not to sort of get too despondent by the overall big picture. Keep the big picture, but also think about the small incremental changes that do add up to something.
Pete Molyneux with Careful What You Wish For, Orangutan.
Lose the frown. Ride the escalator, up and up and down.
Hi, I'm Pete Molyneux. My poem, Careful What You Wish For, Orangutan, was partly inspired by a court ruling in 2015 that awarded the legal status of non-human person to an orangutan. The poem takes an ironic look at the benefits of this elevated status, of being allowed to join us on our journey towards the precipice. Also, a couple of years ago, an advert from an energy company depicted a wonder-struck orangutan enjoying the delights of the human world. Watching it, I couldn't help thinking how this sad but wise-looking animal was only there because its own world had been destroyed. Rather than the hubris of bringing orangutans up to our level, I'm hoping the poem's impact will encourage us to take a more humble approach in relating to our fellow species and natural habitat that we're so wantonly and casually destroying. I want to say a final thank you to Florrie and Maddy and Mark and everyone at Home Stage for this wonderful initiative.
Solomon Samsara with So-and-so.
Dear so-and-so, hoard for every mineral we could leach out, then too fucking late to teach about that womb.
First of all, I'd like to... What's this? Litter. Do me a favour, folks, if you see any litter, pick it up. It might be part of the solution. I'd like to apologise for the bad language in the poem. It was an attempt to illustrate the bad decisions the most powerful make, hidden behind deliberate misspellings. But when you shift a few letters, the words reveal their names, their guilt. But in a sense, I don't see poetry, music, theatre, the arts as simply an opportunity to mark the moment or to observe or to comment. But I wish it to be part of the solution, part of the fight back. I mean, this could be dismissed as, well, what is this anyway? Rubbish? But maybe it's a part of the...
Bob Ward with For a Great-Granddaughter. Sad the land I leave to you, its dire losses I bewail, where rarely's heard the turtle dove, never the nightingale.
Hello, I'm Bob Ward. This poem grew out of the tension between the joy of welcome for a newborn child and concern for the baby's future at a time of urgent environmental crisis. I leave it for her to read once she's old enough and after I have gone.
Alyssa Kindred with Poem.
We just need eyes and ears to see them, an open heart to hold the truth they tell.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm a poet living in Cornwall. I wrote this poem after lockdown when I was feeling, like many people, very alone and isolated. And I was desperate to go to the woods, so when I got there, I just found this explosion of spring with wildflowers and trees and blossom and leaves. It felt like a festival, and suddenly the illusion of my separateness just popped, and I felt really held by a community of beings that have always been there throughout my whole life, throughout my ancestors' life and throughout future generations' lives. So it's my intention and my hope that anyone reading or listening to this poem will feel the exact same thing, and that if we can shift into a more indigenous way of seeing and experiencing the world, and all its living beings as part of us, as our friends and family, that will inspire enormous change.
The poetry winner for the 2023 pFITE Awards is... Thank you, Mark. Here we go. Careful What You Wish For, Orangutan by Pete Molyneux.
Yay! Be careful what you wish for, orangutan. From apes to apps, through redesigned appendages, we have progressed. Thumbs, brains, occupied, buzz, buzz. The insect life goes on. Bacteria await. Animals and flowers have their day. We too must move along. But in the meantime, goals and aspirations keep us busy.
Our final positive environmental story carries on from our promise in the last episode and from the very beginning of the pFITE series. We shall now be planting a tree for every entry to the series. That's 81 trees for 81 entries. Here is footage of the very first going into the ground with Florrie, Maddy and Philip the gardener.
Looks like the water after Florrie has a bath. Just telling the truth.
Proper nourishment. So you having a cheeseburger? No, that's good. So, we want to put one in, don't we?
The apple gala.
Nice piece of apple gala.
Apple it out.
Cool. So, if we put a bit of peat in as well.
Who's he? So, what sort of peat is this?
Oh, it's peat-free peat. If one of you wants to use this to put that in there, would you like to?
Yes, please.
And I'll go around this way.
Do you know where we're going, Mads?
Thanks! Wow, it's a sharp spade. Like that.
Well done. Beautiful.
It doesn't look very well placed.
Oh, sorry. You better step back because it just get messy.
We haven't got any PPE, we probably should.
Jobs are good then.
Sorry.
Yeah, put it in your dungaree, your little pocket there. Oh!
How'd you ready to go?
I handed her a flower and she threw it away.
I don't know where it is.
Little dance, Florrie. A tree dance.
Grow! Grow big and strong and free and produce us delicious sweet apples.
And we're back. And now time for the folk category. And the nominees for the folk category are Anne Cronin-Brutzert with Honey.
There's this thing we used to call honey. It was made by what we used to call bees.
Welcome to my sunny, messy garden, where the bees are very busy collecting nectar today. I wrote the song Honey after going to Turkey. We went there on our honeymoon and spent some time snorkeling and watching the fishes and the underwater seascape, which was so stunning. So when our little girls were a little bit bigger, we took them both to Turkey to the same spot. And unfortunately, when we were snorkeling, there was only sand on the seabed. So we talked about it to the locals and asked them, have we got the wrong spot? And they said no, in fact it's the same place, but the fishing boats drag their nets across the seabed and they just take everything in their wake. So that prompted me to write this song. I mentioned my messy garden before. What we see as mess is actually really vital for the animals to survive. The impact that I would like to have on you is that you perhaps look very close to home and make tiny changes there that just give other creatures a chance in this world. Thank you very much.
Johnny Campbell with Winter Hill Trespass.
On Sunday will you come for a walk around Winter Hill? 10,000 came last Sunday, there's room for thousands still. On Sunday will you come for a walk around Winter Hill?
The song Winter Hill Trespass is about an event that happened in 1896 next to Bolton in Lancashire, where 10,000 people occupied the moor of Winter Hill to liberate a footpath which had been closed off by a local landowner called Colonel Ainsworth. And this is known as Britain's largest mass trespass. This isn't something that's just something of the times of the height of the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, of times of the enclosures. This is something that's still happening now, as has been seen in the last 6 months on Dartmoor, where Alexander Darwall, the landowner who has tried to take away people's legal right to wild camp on Dartmoor, which is why I've chosen the Right to Roam campaign as the group that I wish to support with the homestage competition. Thank you.
Willow Changelings with Circadian Rhythms.
Hello, we are Morgan and Ella from Willow Changelings. I wrote Circadian Rhythms after moving to Leeds city centre for university, and I was feeling quite homesick and missing nature at the time. I kept hearing birdsong late at night and was wondering why. And then when I looked into it, I found out that birds in cities have adapted to singing at night time in order to be heard, because that's when it's quieter. So this song is essentially about the parallels between bird life and human life in cities.
We wanted to put a song out there that brought attention to the fact that birds have adapted around the man-made environment we've forced them into, and the fact that we do very little to make it easier for them and many other aspects of nature. So we just hope that this song makes people feel at least a bit more environmentally conscious and just be kinder to nature.
Dave Atkinson with Tell Me How Long the Train's Been Gone.
Tell me, mister, tell me how long the train's been gone. I'm late.
Seeds of the song were sown in 1971 when I was at university in Manchester. My friend Ken had been reading about the threats to the natural world posed by human activity at a time when this kind of thing was not the global concern it is now. I took the song title from American author James Baldwin's novel and used it as a metaphor for the potential consequences of humans on the natural world. Once the song escaped my young hands, it set off on its own journey, never on top of my list, but always on it. The song ploughed bravely on, seeming to say, "Ignore me if you will, but you do so at your peril." Of course, it is not as simple as one train, more like a succession of them. One leaves the station, then another comes and goes, just as one impact of climate change triggers others. Enough. Tell me how long the train's been gone comes blinking into the limelight that pFITE has given it and says, "At last."
Jack Blackman with It's Not Too Late.
Billionaires flying in their own space rockets above a planet on fire, and tell me who's gonna stop it, cause our leaders don't care about your children.
I was inspired to write the song It's Not Too Late after taking part on an environmental protest during the time of the COP26 climate conference. It felt like nothing was going to be done and nothing was going to change, and our leaders weren't taking the situation seriously. So I channeled the frustration I felt into a song that I hoped would bring people together and get people singing, and also provide some hope that it's not too late if we act now and our voices are heard now. I used the images of protest to create the sense of community, people coming together and having a good time despite the seriousness of the situation. The images of the man-made destruction highlights the fact that we must all shoulder some blame.
Holly Tannen with Grateful Dead Boogie.
Was there music before the Grateful Dead? And why are they grateful? 8-year-old Oliver said. In Mendocino, California, the Coalition to Save Jackson State Forest is fighting to save the remaining ancient redwood trees. 80-meter-tall redwoods once covered the northern half of North America. They've all been burned down or cut down, except these few on the California coast. What might scare off loggers from illegally cutting redwoods on public land? A 15-year-old girl sitting for 2 days and nights on a platform 60 foot up in a redwood tree. A band of native Pomo people and their allies locking arms around a redwood grove, singing. And perhaps the thought of environmentalists around the world supporting the protectors of these ancient trees.
And the music winner for the 2023 pFITE Awards is...
I think we're done.
Thank you, Mark. There we go. Aww. It's Not Too Late by Jack Blackman.
Billionaires flying in their own space rockets rockets above a planet on fire, and tell me who's gonna stop it, 'cause our leaders don't care about your children's future, but you'll vote on them again 'cause it just seems to suit you. It's a race against time to reverse the change. If we want humanity to remain, it's not too late to change the way we live. We can't wait.
Thanks to your voting, we now have our fight winners. Pete and Jack, very well done to you both.
Now, our aim with this show was to encourage sensitive explorations into our relationships with the natural world and to spread some messages of hope. Pete and Jack, we truly think that your entries represent the heart of pFITE. And of course, you also win the grand prize.
Okay, so that's £500 to Pete, and then that's £500 to Jack.
And of course, £500 to an environmental charity of your choices.
Pete and Jack, this will of course be real money, as opposed to whatever Maddy is handing out. And the environmental charities that each of you choose will get £500 each. We now have our official pFITE winners, but as the judges, we wanted to acknowledge an extra few entrants who really stood out to us.
It's not too late to change the way we live. We can't wait. Your world is all there.
We are so excited to have our first ever pFITE winners, and I'm sure you're going to be seeing a lot more of them in the future.
Thank you to all of the entrants to the pFITE series, and thank you to our wonderful audience. We couldn't have done it without any of you. But this isn't the end of pFITE.
If you're feeling inspired to create a song or poem about the natural world, send it in, and these are going to be the basis of the next phase of pFITE.
That's a wrap. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks for joining the pFITE.
Billionaires flying in their own space rockets above a planet on fire, and tell me who's gonna stop it, 'cause our leaders don't care about your children's future, but you'll vote on them again 'cause it just seems to suit you. It's a race against time to reverse the change. If we want humanity to remain, it's not too late to change the way we live. We can't wait. Your world is all there is. It's not too late to change the way we live. We gotta get it together. Help to make this planet better. There's 8 million tons of plastic waste in the ocean, coastal erosion, 'cause the ice caps ain't no longer frozen. They'll be fighting for survival on the Polynesian island, but it don't affect you, so just close your eyes and keep on smiling. Ignore the signs, 'cause we don't wanna change, but every one of us must shoulder some blame. It's not too late to change the way we live.